In a small village nestled in the lush green landscapes of southeastern Nigeria, a young girl named Adaeze was born. Her mother, Neka, was known for her gentle spirit and nurturing nature. She passed away when Adaeze was just 6 years old, leaving a void in the girl's heart that could never truly be filled. Her father, Chukwudi, a hardworking farmer, was devastated by the loss, but did his best to raise his daughter alone. For years, Adaeze and her father managed to find a semblance of happiness despite their grief. She helped him on the farm, tending to the crops and learning the ways of the land. They were poor, but they had each other, and that was enough. Even though her father was a difficult man, which became more obvious after the death of her mother, but he was still her father, and he was doing his best to take care of her. So she was grateful for that. Welcome to Afro Tales TV, your home for rich, exciting, and inspiring stories from around the world. Today's story will touch your heart and keep you hooked till the very end. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our amazing stories. When Adaeze turned 12, her father remarried. Her stepmother, Ifeoma, was a woman of striking beauty, but with a heart as cold as ice. From the moment she entered their home, she viewed Adaeze as an obstacle, a reminder of Chukwudi's first wife, whom she envied even though she had never met the woman before. Maybe it's because of the way Chukwudi was always talking about her and how wonderful she was. If she was that wonderful, why did she allow herself die? Ifeoma would always think to herself, devising more ways to take out anything that reminds Chukwudi of her rival. And Adaeze was the closest thing she could use to assuage her jealousy and bitterness. Ifeoma's subtle manipulations and cunning words slowly began to poison Chukwudi's mind against his own daughter. She accused Adaeze of laziness, disrespect, and disobedience, all the while presenting a facade of kindness and concern. As the years passed, the bond between Adaeze and her father weakened. Chukwudi, blinded by Ifeoma's deceit, began to see his daughter as a burden rather than a blessing. By the time Adaeze turned 16, the situation had become unbearable. One stormy night, after a particularly heated argument fueled by Ifeoma's lies, Chukwudi made a heartbreaking decision. He drove Adaeze out of their home, casting her into the night with nothing but the clothes on her back and a few hastily packed belongings. Tears streamed down Adaeze's face as she wandered aimlessly through the village, her heart shattered by her father's rejection. She found herself at the edge of the bush, where she decided to venture into the unknown. The dense forest seemed less daunting than the thought of staying in a place where she was no longer wanted. Her journey through the bush was arduous and filled with peril. She foraged for food, drank from streams, and used her wits to avoid dangerous animals. The nights were the hardest, with the sounds of the wild and the cold seeping into her bones. Her resolve, however, remained unbroken. She was determined to find a new life, away from the pain of her past. After 2 grueling weeks of eating only fruits and vegetables she recognized, Adaeze finally emerged from the forest and found herself at the outskirts of a bustling city. The noise, the people, and the sheer size of it all overwhelmed her senses. But she knew this was her chance to start over. With no money and no place to stay, she wandered the streets until she found an uncompleted building where she could seek shelter. Adaeze's resilience shone through as she sought work in the city. She eventually found a job as a salesgirl in a small shop. The pay was meager, but it was enough to buy food and basic necessities. She continued to sleep in the uncompleted building, making it her makeshift home. Though her new life was filled with challenges, Adaeze remained hopeful. She worked hard, saved what little money she could, and dreamed of a better future. Her past had taught her the value of strength and perseverance, and she was determined to build a life that no one could take away from her. At first, life in the city was harsh. Adaeze faced discrimination and hardship daily. The shop owner, Madame Ebele, was stern but fair, and seeing Adaeze's determination, She slowly began to warm up to the young girl as she saw Adaeze's dedication to her work and how her polite approach won over the more customers for her business. Despite the challenges, Adaeze remained hopeful. She made a friend in Chica, a fellow salesgirl who worked in a neighboring store. Chica, having come from a similar background, understood Adaeze's struggles. The two girls shared their dreams and hopes, providing each other with much-needed support. Chica often invited Adaeze to her home, a small room she shared with two other people in a crowded building. There, Adaeze experienced a sense of belonging and warmth that she had missed for so long. One evening, as they sat on the floor of Chica's room, sharing a meal of jollof rice, Chica told Adaeze about a local community center that offered free evening classes. It was a place where young people could learn skills like sewing, hairdressing, and basic literacy. Intrigued and eager to improve her prospects, Adaeze decided to visit the center. The community center became Adaeze's sanctuary. She enrolled in the literacy classes and sewing courses, spending every spare moment learning and improving her skills. The center's coordinator, Mrs. Ojo, was impressed by Adaeze's determination and offered her additional help. Under Mrs. Ojo's guidance, Adaeze not only learned to read and write, but also discovered a passion for tailoring. As months turned into years, Adaeze's life began to change. She saved enough money to rent a small room of her own, leaving the uncompleted building behind. Her sewing skills improved, and she started taking on small tailoring jobs in addition to her work at the shop. Word of her talent spread, and soon she had a steady stream of customers. However, living alone was not easy, and the rent of her small room started to become a burden as her earnings from the shop were still minimal. One of her colleagues, Kemi, noticing her struggles, offered Adaeze a room to share in her apartment. Grateful for the offer, Adaeze accepted, hoping that it would ease her financial strain. At first, the arrangement seemed perfect. The room was small but comfortable, and Adaeze was happy to have someone to share her nights with. But it didn't take long for Kemi's true nature to emerge. She was often harsh and demanding, expecting Adaeze to do most of the household chores. Kemi's constant complaints and unreasonable demands made life increasingly difficult. She would frequently accuse Adaeze of not pulling her weight, despite Adaeze doing most of the work. Adaeze felt trapped once again, but she was determined not to let this situation break her spirit. She continued to work hard at the shop and focused on improving her sewing skills. Despite Kemi's constant harassment, Adaeze managed to find solace in her routine and her small circle of friends. One day, while returning from work, Adaeze noticed a young man setting up a small computer kiosk next to their compound. His name was Michael, and he offered computer services, repairs, and lessons. Adaeze was fascinated by the technology but knew she couldn't afford the lessons. However, her curiosity got the better of her, and she started talking to Michael during her free time. Michael, impressed by Adaeze's eagerness to learn, began teaching her the basics of coding during their conversations. Adaeze was a quick learner, and soon she was spending every spare moment at Michael's kiosk, learning how to code. Michael provided her with resources and practice assignments, encouraging her to pursue her newfound passion. As her coding skills improved, Adaeze started taking on small freelance projects through online platforms. The extra income was a relief, but she kept her new work a secret from Kemi, fearing that she would find a way to sabotage her efforts. Adaeze's determination and hard work began to pay off, and she soon landed a remote job that paid well. With her new job providing a steady income, Adaeze secretly saved enough money to move out. One early morning, while Kemi was still asleep, Adaeze quietly packed her little belongings and left the apartment. She had found a small but cozy place to live, where she could finally breathe easy and focus on her future. Adaeze's new life was slowly falling into place. She had been setting up her new apartment gradually, buying a few items here and there to make the space feel like home. By the time she was ready to move in, all she needed to bring were her personal belongings. Once she arranged her new home to her satisfaction, she decided to pay a visit to Kemi's apartment. Later that evening, Adais returned to Kemi's place with bags full of gifts containing personal effects and food items. She knew Kemi lacked many of these essentials, and despite their difficult relationship, Adais wanted to leave on good terms. When she arrived, Kemi was shocked to see her. Kemi had concluded that Adais had run away, and she had been telling everyone who would listen that Adais had stolen her money and jewelry. When some of the neighbors saw Adais entering Kemi's apartment with bags of goodies, they were shocked. They wondered why Kemi had spread such rumors about Adais. Oblivious to the gossip, Adais warmly greeted Kemi and presented her with the gifts. She thanked Kemi profusely for the accommodation and help rendered when she was in need, explaining that she had found another apartment in a different part of the city. For the first time since they had shared the apartment, they engaged in small talk. Kemi tried to find out which part of the city Adais had moved to, but Adais was wise enough to avoid revealing her location. After spending about an hour chatting, Adais politely excused herself, citing the traffic as a reason for her early departure when Kemi tried to persuade her to stay longer. After leaving Kemi's apartment, Adais headed to Michael's learning center. She wanted to share the news of her move with him. Michael, who had helped her scout for the apartment and arranged for workers to put the place in order, was like a big brother and father figure to her. When she told him she had finally moved in, he was genuinely happy for her. Michael jokingly demanded to know the date of her housewarming party, claiming he was saving his stomach for the party jollof rice and meat. Adais laughed heartily and joined in the joke, telling him she was expecting a consignment from abroad to make the party as grand as possible. They continued to joke and laugh together until the center closed for the day. As Michael walked Adais home, they chatted about her plans for the future. At the gate of her new apartment, Michael said his goodbyes, promising to come and see the house properly during the weekend when he would have more time. For the first time in a long while, Adais felt a sense of peace and belonging. Her new apartment, her coding job, and her small but growing tailoring business were all signs of the new life she was building. She invested in better sewing equipment and started offering more sophisticated designs. Her clientele grew, and she became known for her unique and beautiful creations. She looked forward to what the future held, knowing that she had the strength and support to face whatever challenges came her way. Adais's fashion house continued to prosper, gaining recognition for its unique and high-quality designs. Instead of abandoning her second stream of income from her tech job, which was also fetching a good sum of money, Adais decided to hire more professional tailors. This allowed her to focus on the business side of her fashion house, while also dedicating time to her tech job. After saving diligently for 3 years, Adais sought Michael's advice on finding a good realtor. She wanted to start investing in real estate, beginning with the purchase of land in a promising area. Michael was amazed by her proposition. He never ceased to wonder at how cool-headed and wise she was for her age. Many young women in her position would have started living lavishly, but Adais still resided in her modest one-room apartment. She refused to move, saying the house still served her well, and she liked the calm, serene atmosphere of the estate it was located in. Michael had previously suggested that she rent a newly built 2-bedroom apartment in the same estate, but Adais had declined, saying she didn't have the budget for such an expense. Michael had wondered at the time what she was doing with her money, knowing that 1 month's paycheck from her tech job alone would cover 6 months of rent plus utilities. However, he didn't probe further, as he had learned over time that Adais only spoke when she wanted to, and not a moment before. Now, hearing her plans to buy land, Michael understood better where her money was going. He was amazed and proud, thinking about how he had taken a chance on her when it seemed like she had nothing. He was also glad that he was the one she trusted. Although he didn't consider himself the best of humans, he was sure of one thing: he would never deliberately cause her harm or put her into disrepute. Michael agreed to help Adais find a reliable realtor and promised to assist her in any way he could. Over the next few weeks, Adais and Michael visited several promising areas and met with various realtors. They finally found a piece of land that Adais felt was perfect for her investment. It was in a developing area with a lot of potential for growth. Michael helped to negotiate the terms, and soon, Adese became the proud owner of her first piece of real estate. Adese's investment in real estate marked a significant milestone in her journey. She felt a sense of accomplishment and security, knowing she was building a solid foundation for her future. Despite her growing success, she remained humble and focused, always looking for ways to improve and expand her horizons. With the help of the professional tailors she had hired, her fashion house continued to thrive. Adese's tech job also provided her with steady income and opportunities for growth. Balancing both careers, she managed to carve out time for personal development, attending workshops and seminars to stay ahead in the competitive world of fashion and technology. One evening, as they sat in Michael's office discussing her latest real estate venture, Michael couldn't help but express his admiration. "Adese, you never cease to amaze me. Your wisdom and determination are beyond your years. Many people would have taken a different path, but you've stayed true to your values and goals." Adese smiled, grateful for Michael's support and encouragement. "I've had good people around me, Michael. People like you who believed in me and helped me when I needed it most. I just want to make the most of the opportunities I've been given and ensure a secure future." Michael nodded, understanding the depth of her gratitude and determination. He knew Adese's journey was far from over and that she would continue to achieve great things. Adese had decided to spend her day off with Michael. He had been complaining that she was becoming too busy to spend time with him, and she realized he was right. This day she set out to do nothing tasking and, if possible, to avoid even thinking. They talked at length, enjoying each other's company. It was then that Adese decided to tell Michael the truth about her family. She had previously told him she was an orphan with no family ties, but she felt he had earned the right to know her true origins. Taking a deep breath, Ada began to recount her story. She spoke of her father and stepmother, the days of starvation, unprompted beatings, and sleepless nights. She described the nights she slept outside on the cold, hard corridor, her stomach empty, with nothing to protect her from the cold and mosquitoes except her flimsy clothes. Sometimes, her stepmother would say she was smelling and stinking up the house, or one of her children would tell a lie about her, and her father would always side with them. She still didn't understand why her father had turned against her so completely. He had always been a tough man, but never to the extent of depriving her of basic necessities. Michael listened, dumbfounded, as Ada recounted her harrowing tales. When she got to the part where she was finally thrown out of the house, and it took her weeks to walk from her village to the city, she paused, unable to continue. The memories were still as painful as though they had happened yesterday. This was why she kept this part of her life hidden. She thought she could handle it now, but it was still too raw. She refused to look at Michael, not wanting to see the pity she was sure would be etched on his face. She didn't tell people her story because of the pain it brought, but most importantly, she didn't want anybody's pity or, worse, mockery. She did not want her life to be tainted with the foolishness of other people's ignorance or wickedness. As she stared at her hands, lost in thought, she felt Michael move. Before he could come any closer, she stood up from her seat, wiping her tears. "Don't, please. I don't want your pity," she said, holding out her hand to stop him from coming any closer. Finally, she looked up at his face, but what she saw there shocked her. Instead of pity, she saw admiration and something else she refused to put into words for now. Michael's eyes were filled with respect and a deep, unspoken emotion. "Adese," he began softly, "I don't pity you. I admire you. Your strength, your resilience, and your ability to rise above such circumstances. It's incredible. You are incredible." Ada blinked back her tears, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had expected sympathy, perhaps even condescension, but not this. Michael's unwavering respect and support meant more to her than she could express. "Thank you, Michael," she said quietly. "Thank you for listening and for believing in me. It means a lot." Michael nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I'm here for you, always, and I'm proud of everything you've achieved. You've come so far, and I know you'll go even further." They spent the rest of the day in comfortable silence, a new bond of trust and understanding forged between them. Ada felt a sense of relief, having shared her past with someone who truly understood and appreciated her journey. She knew that with Michael by her side, she could face whatever challenges the future held. As the sun set and the day came to an end, Ada felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her past no longer felt like a burden she had to carry alone. With Michael's support and her own determination, she was ready to embrace the future and all the possibilities it held. Meanwhile, back in the village, Chukwudi had not known peace since the day Adaeze ran away. Every night when he closed his eyes, he was haunted by visions of his late wife. In these dreams, she appeared before him, tears streaming down her face, pleading with him to bring her daughter back. Her voice echoed in his mind, filled with sorrow and accusation. "Chukwudi, why did you let this happen? Bring my daughter back," she would say, her cries piercing the stillness of the night. These dreams tormented him, filling him with a deep sense of unrest and guilt. He could no longer ignore the nagging feeling in his heart that he had failed his daughter. He had allowed his second wife, Ngozi, to mistreat Adaeze, turning a blind eye to her cruelty and neglect. He had been a tough man, yes, but he had never intended for his daughter to suffer so. At first, he had tried to brush off these dreams as mere figments of his imagination, the result of stress and old age. But as they continued night after night, he realized they were more than that. They were a reminder of his failure as a father. The dreams grew more vivid with each passing night, his late wife's voice more desperate, her tears more real. Chukwudi's days were no better. The once vibrant and respected man now walked around the village like a shadow of himself. The neighbors whispered behind his back, speculating about the change in him. They knew something was eating away at his conscience, but no one dared to speak to him about it. Some remembered Adaeze, the quiet girl with a gentle spirit, and wondered where she had gone. One afternoon, as Chukwudi sat under the large mango tree in his compound, lost in thought, Ngozi approached him. She had noticed the change in him too, but dismissed it as a phase. She was more concerned with the rumors that had started to spread through the village, rumors that Adaeze had been seen in the city, thriving. "Chukwudi," Ngozi said, her tone sharp, "why do you sit here day and night as if you have no work to do? There are things to be done around the house. You're becoming useless." Chukwudi looked up at her, his eyes weary. "Ngozi," he replied quietly, "have you heard anything about Adaeze?" Ngozi snorted, crossing her arms over her chest. "Why should I care about that wretched girl? She got what she deserved for being so stubborn and ungrateful. Let her be wherever she is." Chukwudi sighed, shaking his head. "Ngozi, she is still my daughter. I cannot just forget her." Ngozi's face twisted with disdain. "Your daughter, you say? She never respected me as her mother. You've been too soft on her, and now look where it's gotten you, worrying over a child who has probably forgotten all about you." Chukwudi felt a surge of anger rise within him, but quickly suppressed it. There was no point arguing with Ngozi. He knew her heart was hardened, and she would never understand the pain he felt. He stood up, brushing the dust from his clothes. "I need to find her, Ngozi," he said firmly. "I need to make things right." Ngozi scoffed. "Do as you please, Chukwudi, but don't expect me to welcome her back here if you find her." Ignoring her, Chukwudi turned and walked away from the compound, his mind set. He didn't know how or where to start, but he knew he had to find Adaeze. He needed to apologize, to make amends for the years of neglect and abuse she had suffered under his roof. He needed to tell her that he was sorry, that he had been wrong. As he walked through the village, he made his way to the local church. Perhaps the pastor could help him, or at least offer some guidance. He needed all the help he could get. His heart was heavy with regret, but it was also filled with a determination he hadn't felt in years. He wouldn't rest until he found his daughter and made things right. He owed it to his late wife, to himself, and most importantly, to Adaeze. Chukwudi approached the church with a newfound sense of purpose. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but he was ready to face whatever challenges came his way. He was ready to fight for his daughter, to bring her back home, and to finally be the father she deserved. The sun had barely risen when Adayz woke up, her heart racing and her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. She sat up in her bed, the remnants of a vivid dream still clinging to her like morning dew. She had seen her mother. It was the most beautiful thing she had experienced in a long time, a vision so unexpected that it left her startled. In the dream, her mother had appeared as she remembered her from childhood, radiant and kind, with a smile that could light up even the darkest room. Adayz had almost forgotten that smile, a smile that had been her solace in the years of hardship and loss. Seeing her mother again after all these years was a shock, like a sudden gust of wind that took her breath away. The dream had been so real, so vivid, that for a moment Adayz believed she could reach out and touch her. She had felt a warmth, a love that she hadn't felt in years, wash over her. In the dream, her mother hadn't spoken much, but her presence had been enough to convey 1,000 words. They had stood together in a beautiful, serene meadow, surrounded by wildflowers that swayed gently in the breeze. Her mother had reached out, her eyes full of tenderness and understanding, and placed a hand on Adayz's cheek. "My daughter," she had said softly, her voice echoing like a sweet melody. "You have grown strong, but you must forgive. Find peace in your heart. Do not let the past hold you back." Those words lingered in Adayz's mind, even as she tried to shake off the last traces of sleep. Forgive. The word felt heavy, almost impossible. How could she forgive a father who had abandoned her and a stepmother who had made her life unbearable? How could she let go of the pain that had shaped so much of who she was? But the memory of her mother's face, so full of love and peace, made her pause. She realized how much she missed that feeling, how much she longed to feel at peace with herself and her past. Adayz took a deep breath, letting the emotion of the dream wash over her. It felt like a message, a sign that she was not alone, that her mother was still watching over her, guiding her even from beyond the grave. She got up from bed and walked over to the small window in her apartment, opening it to let in the cool morning air. The city was just beginning to wake up, the first hints of sunlight stretching across the skyline. As she stood there, gazing out at the world, she felt a calmness settle over her. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Find peace in your heart." Adayz decided she needed to talk to someone about this dream. The first person who came to mind was Michael. He had been her rock, her confidant, and she knew he would listen without judgment. She quickly got dressed and headed out, her mind still reeling from the dream but her heart feeling lighter than it had in years. When she arrived at Michael's learning center, he was already there, setting up for the day. He looked up as she walked in, immediately sensing that something was different about her. "Adayz," he greeted, concern etched in his features. "Are you all right? You look different today." Adayz managed a small smile and nodded. "I'm okay, Michael. I had a dream last night, a dream about my mother." Michael's eyes softened, and he gestured for her to sit down. "Tell me about it," he encouraged gently. As Adayz recounted the dream, Michael listened intently, his expression a mix of empathy and curiosity. When she finished, he leaned back, thoughtful. "It sounds like your mother is trying to tell you something important," he said. "Maybe she's guiding you toward healing, toward letting go of the past so you can move forward." Adayz nodded slowly. "I've been thinking about that. It's just so hard to forgive. I don't know if I'm ready to let go of everything that happened." Michael reached across the table and took her hand in his, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Adayz. It doesn't mean what they did was okay. It just means freeing yourself from the hold it has on you. It's a way of finding peace for yourself, not for them." Adayz took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. Michael's words resonated with her, echoing the sentiment of her dream. Maybe it was time to start letting go, to begin the journey toward forgiveness, not for those who had wronged her, but for herself, to find the peace her mother wanted for her. For the first time in years, Adaeze felt a glimmer of hope that she could find that peace, that she could build a future unburdened by the pains of her past. And maybe, just maybe, her mother was right there with her, guiding her every step of the way.